am so excited to have Coach Jim here with us today. You are my Beyond Rock Star, and I love your website, your new book. I'm excited to share with all these moms and educators and students about what you're doing and the tools that you have in your toolbox. But I wanted to start and share my screen, if it's all right, Jim,
Absolutely.
and just share about your video. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. How many here have a BHAG? From the looks, I think I have to delve further. A big, hairy, audacious goal. In other words, a really big dream. How many here have a big dream? Awesome, because it's my job today to inspire you to think bigger and to help you make your dreams come true. The year was 1984, and one of my big dreams came true. I became a varsity basketball coach in a local high school close to where I grew up, and I was excited. I thought I knew everything there was about coaching. I was going to lead this team from the outhouse to the penthouse in a short period of time. After 2 games, we're 1-1. I said, I've got this, we're okay. And then with my great coaching wizardry, I led that team to 17 consecutive losses. And then I didn't like what the administration had to say to me after the year, so I left that job. Of course, what they said to me is, you're fired. It was very humbling, but also ended up being a blessing for me for a couple reasons. One, I learned the power of perseverance, one of the keys I talk about in my keynote, and that never give up mindset. And number 2, it was a blessing because I got hired by a local junior college coach that was a fantastic coach, and he helped me get back on my feet. But one of my other keys is passion, and my real passion was to coach at the high school level. And I became a varsity coach again at the high school level. But after 7 years, I didn't quite have it figured out. In fact, I was like 40 games under 500, which isn't so good. But then I got an epiphany. I said, you know what? If I'm going to be a better coach, I need to study leadership. And I started to delve into all types of books and pick people's brains. And one of the first books I read was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Has anybody ever read that book? Awesome read. In the book, Dr. Covey talks about beginning with the end in mind, one of his habits. And in the habit, he shares about each person having their own personal mission statement. And a great question to ask yourself is, why were you put on this earth? Because when I asked that question to myself, I had no clue. Here I was in my early 30s, floundering as a coach, and I started to think, and I started to write things down. And now I'm very clear on my personal mission. It's to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true.
Okay, my dear, that is so you, and I love it. And tell me more about that, because it's so interesting that you didn't know where you're going, and look where you are today. So tell me more.
Well, I think that really, when I started my own personal growth journey and, being humbled and getting fired from my first varsity position, and then getting other opportunities, but still struggling and trying to figure out my way. The more I read and the more I learned, the more I realized if I was going to be a better leader, the first person I had to lead was myself. And that's when I did a lot of thinking and really started to discover why my purpose, why I was put on this earth. And when I gained clarity, and, I shared that in a little clip you showed, that my mission statement is to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. And, when I share people, try to help them with their own personal mission, I think really important to understand what your most important values were. And for me, what came out of that is I wanted to be someone that people looked at as a role model. So that was a value to me. Number 2 is I really wanted to treat people with respect. And thirdly, I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve them in some way so they could create their dreams coming true. And so, when I put that together and when I gained clarity about who I was, it was really interesting how my career really started to change for the better. And I think it's really because the young people that I coached, they knew who I was. You know, that I was the same person on the court, in practice, off the court, in the community. And when they understood that, because I understood that after taking some time to figure that out, then it really helped develop a bond and relationships. And they knew where I stood. And then as I built relationships with them, they understood where they were from. And, you know, as we started to make this journey together, then all of a sudden we started to have a lot more success.
Very cool. So how do I get started? You know, what do I do? I mean, I'm so confused, and everyone out there that's listening to you, share some of your tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. So, you know, I mentioned that little clip that you showed is that I think the first thing that you know, because I've done a lot of studying about personal mission statements, and, you know, what I've really found is I think it's this discovery. So it's something that is probably not going to happen in 30 seconds. Like all of a sudden, boom, it's going to come to you like an epiphany. But what will come, what will come is really trying to figure out, okay, well, the why was I put on this earth, or you're a person of faith, why God put you on this earth. And then the second thing is I really, when I share my presentations, whether it's a keynote or a workshop, I ask them, you know, what are your three most important values? And write those down and really start to think, and then start to discover, okay, with my most important values, how do I want to live? And then the other important part of a mission statement is I believe it's got to help a cause. All right. And so, you know, in my case, I wanted to help young people. So that was my major cause. You know, other people have a cause, like I know you're really big into health and wellness, which is something I enjoy very much as well. And that's why being a role model was very important to me. And then, you know, people have other causes. You know, I work some with autism because I had a young man in my life that was on the autism spectrum. That's a very big part of my life. So that was important. You know, people have causes for the environment, the causes, you know, because we're having civil unrest. You know, there's a lot of different causes, but I think some of the things you got to decide is, you know, what do you stand for? What are your values? And how are you going to help overcome or serve a cause? And, you know, most of the time it has something to do with helping people. But, you know, some people have a cause that they, you know, want to make, help animals, for example. And, you know, but I think that's what you've got to take some time to reflect on your why, reflect on your values, and reflect on, you know, really what is your purpose, your cause? You know, what moves you forward and really drives the passion. Because I think when you can connect your passion with things you're good at, then you really find your sweet spot.
Yeah. So did this all happen with the JMAC story? Or was it before then? Or
so I gained clarity about who I was before the JMAC story. But the JMAC story really, it gave me a couple great lessons. And the one that, you know, in fact, I end one of my keynotes with this, is, you know, by this statement. And I say, you know, the best way to make your dreams come true is to help others make their dreams come true. And I, you know, that really manifested, you know, because I really had built a relation with Jason, and, you know, I gave him a chance to play in a game, and certainly he not only shocked me, but shocked the entire world.
so tell the story so everybody knows what we're talking about, because I just every time I hear it, I just like, oh my God, this is what everybody should do.
Yeah. So I had a young man, and I'll give you one little quick side note on that is when this young man came into our program in 2003, I had at that point started to really be fairly successful as a coach as far as, like, you know, the standard that's often measured from winning seasons. We were winning quite a bit. But I did have a big stumbling block in the fact that we kept losing in our postseason tournament. So Jason McElwain came into our program in 2003, and he's on the autism spectrum. He's also learning disabled. and he tries out for the junior varsity team. I'm the varsity coach. So tries out for a couple of days. The JV coach comes to me and says, Coach, Jason's not a very good player, but man, he's got a big heart. I think we should keep him in the program. I said, well, what do you got in mind? He says, I want to keep offering the team manager's job and let him practice with the team. And that's what he did. And I'll admit there was some trials and tribulations early in the season, but the kids started to really get a bond because they could see that he was so passionate about basketball and he loved the team and he loved the program. So they really started to embrace him and help him, and he became a big part of us. And to fast forward, so Jason, what was really neat about him is not only that he was involved during the season, but he came to all our off-season workouts. He was really wanting to make the team. And so he tries out his junior, doesn't make it, but he serves as my team manager. Tries out again his senior, doesn't make it again. And this time, though, I tell him during our meeting that I was going to give him a gift. And the gift was for our final home game, which we call senior night, I was going to give him a jersey and hopefully get him in the game. Well, we ironically had a very difficult season. In fact, I wrote a book called The Coach and a Miracle about it.
I can't wait to hear more. So yeah.
And so but what happened was that during that season, we were expected to have a really good team. And we got off to a good start, but then adversity struck. And it's too long a story to delve into. It is my book, but we actually had some adversity that divided the team. And so we really started to struggle, and we were losing games that we shouldn't have lost. And we actually, at the midpoint of the season at Christmas, we had a heart-to-heart talk after one of our Christmas tournament games. And our players started to open up, and finally, we got our mojo back, and we got some momentum. The team finally started to unite a little bit, and we won 8 out of our last 9 games going into our senior night, which was on February 15th in 2006. February 13th, I gave Jason his first jersey. He's now known in the world as J-Mac, and a little side note on that is J-Mac was something I tagged him the nickname because I could not pronounce his last name. In fact, butchering his last name was a misdemeanor. I would have been on death row. And so I said, we should call you J-Mac because there was a player at Syracuse University, which is pretty close to where we are, named G-Mac, and he liked that. So that's how he got tagged. But anyways, so on February 13th, I give Jason his first jersey. And there was a rumor going around school they slept in it for 2 straight nights. He was pretty excited.
I love it.
And then, so the game comes, and at the opening tap, I start hearing a chant from our crowd. It was a group of students that really followed us. They called themselves the 6 Men, and they start chanting, "We want J-Mac, we want J-Mac," I guess, in just in case I forgot. Well, I got everybody in the game after 3 quarters. So with just over 4 minutes to go, I motioned to him to go in, and he stands up, and he nearly runs on the court. He was so excited. Then he gets over to our scorer's table, and when they beckon him on from the official, he walks on the floor, and what happened next really profoundly touched me. What I didn't know is when Jason entered the game, one of our parents had made these pictures, these placards of Jason's face, and put them on paint sticks. And he gave them to the students and said, if Jason gets in the game, please show these. And they did. Well, Jason and I had no idea about this. And Mr. Macho, that's me, I sat down and tears started flowing down my face. I just couldn't believe how the students had greeted him. Well, now the game begins. Jason's in his first varsity game ever. And the first time we get the ball, he has a 3-pointer in the corner, and he lets the crowd go. The crowd kind of stands in anticipation and misses by like 6 feet. I mean, it's not even close. And I kid people that I know you're not supposed to pray in the public schools, but I was praying, dear God, please help him get 1 basket. Well, the next possession, he misses again, but this time he hits the rim. So I'm like, all right, God's starting to listen. We're getting closer. But the great lesson that I think we can really learn, and there's so many lessons from the game, was that when he missed that first shot, a lot of times kids, if they shoot an air ball, which he did, would be so embarrassed they wouldn't do it. And one of the things we used to teach our players all the time, we called it next play. You got to be ready to move on. Life moves on. And Jason really illustrated that extremely well. It didn't bother him. He just shrugged it off. As I said, he missed his second shot. Well, the third shot, he gets another 3-pointer, this time from the right wing. He lets it go, magic. It goes in. The place just explodes. I'm thinking to myself, God must be a basketball fan. Not only has J-Mac scored, he's got a three-pointer. It can't get any better than this, right? Well, for the next 3 minutes, J-Mac turns into his boyhood idol, the late, great Kobe Bryant, and he starts making shot after shot. And the place is going crazy and crazy. And the two things I'll never forget, with about a minute to go, I'm still sitting on the bench, cannot believe what I'm seeing, tears still rolling down my face, and I get a tap on my shoulder. I look behind me, it's Jason's mother, and she's bawling her eyes out, and she says, Coach, this is the best gift you could ever give my son. What would everybody have done if you heard that? I know what I did. I cried harder. Then how the game ends, Spencerport, our opponent at night, and I want to give kudos to their coach and their players. They were really good sports. They score with about 10 seconds to go, and our player takes it out. Normally throws it to our point guard, but for whatever reason, he throws it right to J-Mac. So J-Mac's dribbling down the court. I'm seeing, it's like out of a movie, the clock's ticking down. I thought they were just going to let him go down and make a layup or a short shot. Oh no, Jason pulls up like 2 feet behind the arc, almost an NBA three. I'm thinking, Jason, don't shoot for that. That's way too far. He launches a rainbow. Swish. I look over, our student body runs on the floor, our players run on the floor. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm living the movie Rudy, but this is really true. And then the other interesting dynamic is his dad is 6'6", and Jason's mother is 5'2". And I see this little bitty lady bobbing through the entire crowd. She gets to Jason, gives him a big hug. Then our players put him up on their shoulders. Excuse me. And our public address announcer comes on, and at this point, I had no idea how many points he has. And our public address says the leading scorer for the Trojans, our team nickname, is J-Mac with 20 points. So literally, he scored 20 points in less than 4 minutes. In fact, I kid people, if he'd have played the entire game, he'd have scored 160 points at that rate. And it was just the most incredible thing that I ever saw, and just another great life lesson. As I mentioned earlier, we had a lot of difficulty with the team that year and a lot of division. And what was so neat to me was the essence of teamwork. I had never asked the players to pass Jason the ball when he was on the court. Yet in those last 4 minutes, he was the only one that shot because they just kept passing the ball. And just it warmed my heart so immensely. In fact, I do kid Jason all the time, though. I'll say, Jason, I'm still looking for your first assist. You never passed the ball once. But it really showed what it was all about. And the other thing that I did feel good about, I've seen some really neat stories over the last decade, and I think it was kind of a ripple effect from that game, which is really cool. But I felt they did it for all the right reasons. There was no media there, and in fact, the only media was after the game. I called it into our local newspaper, which was part of my requirement. And I told them that Jason scored 20 points, and I thought they'd make a big deal in the paper, and they didn't. They didn't make, they mentioned the article, but they didn't make a headline or anything. And I remember the next day, I didn't do much teaching. We just watched the video like the whole day at school. And kids were coming up to me and say, Coach, this is going to get on ESPN. I said, ESPN? And we get a headline in our local newspaper. But what happened that day was Jason's speech pathologist. I didn't know him very well. He worked with Jason for 4 years, and he came. That was the first game he ever came to. And he was so touched by what he saw that he actually called one of our local TV stations and said, you've got to come and borrow the video from the coach. This is the best thing I've ever seen in sports. And Channel 8, one of our local TV stations, called me and asked to borrow the video. They showed it that night and got such a great response. The next day we had 3 TV stations locally come in. Then one of our local TV stations asked to send it out nationally. And that following Monday, I woke up and we didn't have school. We had what we call our February break, but now our team is getting ready for this postseason tournament. And I'm just about to leave the house at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's CBS Evening News, and they normally don't call the house. And they said they want to come in and do a story, and they showed it that Thursday night. And then the next day at practice on that Friday, we had before practice ESPN, Good Morning America, and CNN interview us. And it was just after that, it just blew up like tomorrow. And just to put two finishing touches is 3 weeks later, we actually won our first sectional championship in front of a sold out crowd of about 10,000 people. And then the fast forward 4 months after that, I mentioned that Jason's idol was Kobe Bryant. Well, Jason was up for the ESPY, for the greatest sports moment of the year. And one of the other four finalists was his idol, Kobe Bryant. Kobe had scored 81 points in an NBA game that year. And he actually beat out his idol for the ESPY. So that was kind of the cherry on top.
Very cool. Very cool. So where is he today?
So he's still in our community. Actually, after that year, he graduated from high school. He did not go on to college. He actually worked at a local grocery store that was kind of a big chain in our area. But 2 years after that, he came back one day and he said to me, "Coach, I really missed the program. Can I come back and help?" And he was my volunteer assistant for my last 9 years in coaching. And ironically, after winning that first sectional championship his senior year, we ended up winning 4 more together. So I kid people for a small fee. I will run them out to you. But he's actually, he grew about 3 or 4 inches after high school. He was about 5'9", 120 pounds in that game. He's now about almost 6'2" and 175 pounds. And he was a runner in high school, but he was just an average runner. Well, he's become, because he's gotten so much physically stronger, he's actually become a great runner. He's actually run 13 or 14 marathons, including the Boston Marathon. He's broken 3 hours in the Boston Marathon. So he's accomplished quite a bit. And since I retired from coaching, he has gone on and helped some other coaches because he loves being around. So he helped another school this year, but I still, touch base with him quite a bit. Obviously, the pandemic, I don't see him like I used to, but hopefully we'll get back to that more. But we text and that kind of thing quite a bit.
So it changed his life a lot, but what did it do for you? I mean,
well, it certainly was the greatest experience I ever had in coaching, and I mentioned, because I ended up being a coach. We ended up winning 6 championships in my career, and Jason's that year was his, but by far that night was better than any championship. And championships, they mean a lot, don't get me wrong, but that was just such a special night to see how, everybody embraced that. And, Jason obviously seized the moment. It did. I tried to really stay, with my values and what I was all about. It certainly created some opportunities that I didn't expect. I mean, I've written a book about it, as I mentioned. I've spoke all over the country. I do talks on inspiration, on a talk called Dreams Really Do Come True. I do a lot of leadership and teamwork talks as well, and some workshops like on goal setting and that type of thing. So that's been a fun thing, and I was doing that on the side. And then when I retired from coaching a few years ago, I've been doing it full time. And now I've had a pivot. I'm doing a lot of things now virtually, which I wasn't sure I was going to do. I did not pivot very quickly. I got to admit, I'm getting more comfortable doing virtual presentations, and that's the reality of the world. But I'm optimistic that things are going to start to get better, so we can start doing live events, because that's what I love the most, without a doubt.
So share this book, pull it out and tell me all about it. Let's tell our viewers and listeners, and also where they can get it.
Yeah, so it is still on Amazon, but actually on my website, it's we're selling it on a discount right now. And actually, if you buy it off my website, which is coachjimjohnson.com, you can. I include a free bookmark, and of course, I'll sign it for you. There's a whole segment to be able to do that, and we'll ship it to you and that kind of thing. But the book was interesting enough, is I have a co-author. His name was Mike Latona. Mike was a local newspaper writer, and I went to high school with him. And ironically, 2 of his 3 children are on the autism spectrum. So the JMAC night really touched him deeply. And so we started this project. We called it A Coach in a Miracle. And basically, the first 6 chapters was based on my first keynote, which was called Dreams Really Do Come True. And I talk about 6 keys. And then we added, I think we have 9 chapters total. And then actually, I updated the book a few years ago when I retired from coaching. It was a hardcover book. We put it in paper book, and I added a second epilogue of, how I finished my career, and how JMAC came back and helped coach and that kind of thing. So and then ironically, my small team has been on me for years because I do a lot of leadership talks now, and I actually teamed with a college professor about 4 months ago, and I'm working on a second book for young and emerging leaders, and we haven't exactly decided what the title is going to be, but we're working on it, and so that's kind of one of my exciting projects right now is working on that second book.
So talking about leaders, can you share your 7 cool keys, how to be that effective leader, and maybe some
Sure can.
in that
So,
book?
yep. So the 7 keys. The first one is called clarifying your vision, and we talked about with in developing your own personal mission statement, because the first person you got to lead is you before you can lead anybody else. And the second part is developing a mission for your team or your business or your association, whatever it is. A lot of people have missions. What I found, though, in speaking of businesses and teams and schools, is a lot of people might have a team mission or a business mission, but a lot of people don't know what it is. And to me, that's kind of worthless. So if you have a mission, and for example, what our basketball program mission was to develop winners on and off the court. And that was my job as a leader, to share what it takes to be a winner on the court, not just winning the game, but being a good sport, being a great teammate, and winning off the court. What does that mean? That means being a great citizen, being a best student you can be, and those are some of the things we really tried to, we really wanted to develop leaders in our program and develop them as whole people, not just basketball players. The second key is one that we pretty much everybody agrees: you have to have trust if you're going to have a great team and build relationships. And so, but one of the things I always talk to people about is, do you have a plan on how to build trust? And a lot of times I get people to kind of look at me, no, not really. And that was one of the things, because I ended up after after my first year when I lost my job, I took over 3 programs that all were losing, and we were able to turn them around after some time. And my last program, though, where Jason was played for us, I was there for 20 years, and we never had a losing season. So we were able to get things going and keep it going for pretty consistent for 2 decades. So, but we had a plan of how we're going to build trust. And I talk about 3 keys, and because trust is so essential. And it's kind of like building a bank account. It usually takes some time to build trust, but you can destroy it with one really poor choice. So we talked about is that, number one, you need to align your actions and your words. And if those are consistent, but if they're not, then that's where you have problems. Number 2 is we really want to focus on being able to be truthful with each other. And you do have to have some tact. Sometimes being truthful is a one-on-one meeting, you don't want to embarrass anybody, that kind of thing. But you do have to base your foundation. If you're going to build trust, is making sure that you're telling each other the truth. And the third thing is I took over 3 programs with our team of how are we going to turn this around. And when I talked to my staff and our players, we really focused on, with our staff, trying to catch people doing right as opposed to trying to catch people doing the wrong thing. And that was a mindset that we really tried to, our team of coaches coming in, is trying to catch people doing the right thing. So one of the things I really want to emphasize is that trust, we all know, is important, but you really got to have a plan on how you can build that trust. The third key I talk about is creating an edge. And in creating an edge, I believe as a leader, you should be always trying to find ways that you can create edges for your team or your business or your organization. And one of the things that I talk about is I think you should use other voices. You need to have other people that can help you in the leadership. Otherwise, they're going to get tired of just your voice. You got to use other voices as well. Another thing I talked about is we really spent a lot of time with our players with team individual goal setting. And we taught them how to set goals and how to set plans to do them. We gave them a little card situation where they would read cards in front of a mirror every day. And, we really spent a lot of time, but there's a lot of different ways. We used to do imagery sessions, mental sessions with our players, another way, because I was always trying to find ways that you can create an edge. The fourth key is effective communication. And to that, the keys on that is I believe it's helpful, if you can inspire people with your words. And I think it's good to be able to be a good communicator, a good public presenter. But the most important thing, in fact, that's JMAC season when we're having all this trouble. The best thing that I did, I became a much better listener. As the old adage, you have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much. And really, when our program took off, we were winning so much at the end of my career, we didn't make the finals until my 20th year in coaching. Then in my last 11 years, we made the finals 8 times. So with that consistency, the biggest difference is I just set up methods where communication was better and I became a better listener. In fact, I did a weekly captains meetings every Monday where our players would come in and I would just ask them questions. So questions like, how is the chemistry right now? What do we need to focus in on? Is there anybody right now on the team that's having difficulty that we can help out? And just really trying to get answers and feedback from them and really get them to buy into their, being leaders themselves. I think that's hugely important. The fifth key is an obvious one, but often I found that leaders, it's not so obvious, and it's lead by example. And we used to tell our players all the time that you are always on stage. And that starts with the leadership team. Our coaches, I always talk to them, we're always on stage. So how we handle adversity, how we handle success, people are going to watch us. And if we're not humble when we do well, and able to handle failure in the right way and learn from it, then it's going to be reflected in how our players are going to respond to those types of things. So I think it's really important that you understand that as a leader and you're trying to teach others to be leaders, that you're always on stage. The sixth key is my leadership philosophy, and it's called Leave a Profit. And the concept is that everything that we touched, we wanted to make better, not worse. And I like to give an illustration. Like when we used to travel to another school, and we'd go into the locker room, and when I walk in, if I saw a piece of garbage on the floor, I would pick it up and I'd throw it away. Because again, I was really trying to share with our team that every little bit that we can make things better. And we used to say to them, we want to leave the locker room in better shape than we got there. And I think that, just those types of small things turn into big things when you're consistent and trying to make better. And one of the things because I do a lot of talks to businesses now, they'll often ask me 2 questions. How do you get to the top? And how do you stay there? And the first question is difficult, and this is why we go through a process of a leadership and building leaders. But the second key I really talk to them about is that a really important part of our leadership philosophy is we always want to strive to get a little bit better each day. And as simple as that sounds, that's something you got to reflect. Like I always, I have another talk I do called the 10 questions all leaders should be able to answer. And they're all about personal leadership. And one of them is, do you have a personal growth plan? All right. Are you intentional about trying to get better every single day? I do. I read a book on average on a week. I'm a podcast addict. I turn my car into a library on wheels. I'm always listening to audio programs. So I'm just really trying to find ways, going back to creating an edge. Well, to be able to create an edge for your team, you got to be an idea seeker. And then the last key is to be the all summary. And I think this is what the best leaders are doing now, and they're servant leaders. And what we mean by servant leadership is flipping the traditional leadership pyramid where the leader's on top and everybody else serves them. It's now you're flipping it, and your leader is taking the mindset of 2 things. how can I serve, in my case, my team, my players, or my business colleagues, and also how can I help them grow to become better leaders. I just reread a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, and I really love it. And one of the things he talks about is that there's no real winner in business, and there's no real winner in your marriage. What it is it's an infinite game that you got to keep trying to do a little bit better each day. And when you keep that mindset, he calls it the infinite mindset, then you got to have an opportunity to keep it going even after your days on this earth are done. And I think that's a mindset that we really try to develop. I know Carol Dweck in the book Mindset talks about the growth mindset and the infinite mindset are very similar. So I think that's something we really try to teach our players is we want to keep growing and becoming better and that type of thing. So
are you a seeker?
A what?
A seeker. You seek for the best and seek for the, what's next. And
I am. Yeah. You know what? I found that, and it's something because I've done a lot of studying of leadership and it keeps coming back and back. And it's something that I'm glad to say I am. I'm very curious. I really love to learn. I really like trying to figure out, how, I can become a better leader, how I can be a better person. So yes, I am a seeker. I'm always seeking, trying to get ideas. In between reading and listening to programs and talking to people and having mastermind groups and those type of things, those are all helpful ways to, keep gaining ideas and trying to help yourself so you can help others.
So I have to ask, what is your next big dream?
So, as far as like a bucket list, one thing is I'd like to I'd like to be able to go to every state. I've spoken in 26 and I've been to 40. So I have 10 states to go. So that's kind of a bucket list. Something that two things. I want to complete this book to help young and emerging leaders. I think that'd be something. We're talking about doing a podcast. So I'd like to do that to try to help young and emerging leaders, kind of basis of the book. The other thing is that I'd like to go back. It was a dream that I've kind of put, unfortunately, on the back shelf a little bit, but I'd like to go back because Jason, being on the autism spectrum has always touched me. If I had one dream that I know that has not, I've just touched a little bit, I would love to be a spokesperson for autism, that could try to help people and get them to think a little bit bigger and better. And Jason was obviously a great illustration. Another young man that I just coached my last year of coaching 5 years ago, his dream was to play in the NBA, and he played in Division I college, but it was a smaller college. And he just about 2 months ago was signed by the Houston Rockets. So, it's really cool when those types of things happen. And I've learned a lot from, people like Jay Mack and this young man that just signed with the Rockets, Anthony Lamb, the importance of dreaming big and then, coming up with a plan of action and being diligent and consistent about that plan on a daily basis.
So what state's your next one? Have you been to Arizona?
I have. I've been to Arizona a few times. It's a beautiful state.
I can get you to come back.
But I definitely want to come back. It's a beautiful state. So I've probably been to Arizona maybe 4 times. But so
there you go. Yep. Hopefully not in the summer, right?
I have been in the summer, and I do remember I was actually at a speakers conference there in the summer in late July, and I'm a big workout guy, so I got up one morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and went out for a jog, and at that time it was only 90 degrees. So
I totally get it.
Yeah.
Well, you are my mentor and my hero. And before we let this great crowd go, I would like to know if you could leave them one last tool that you haven't shared that might, just be an aha moment for them. Anything you can think of?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I do want to leave is that one thing is as simple as this sound is I want you to go back, everybody think about your values, about one of the things that I was disappointed through the last couple of years is I think we've lost that sense of respect for every person. And that's the one thing that, if I could push to everyone is that, there are going to be times that we're not going to agree on things, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that we should be disrespectful, that we should treat every human being and every living creature with respect. And so, I really, if I could push one thing to anybody that listens to me is that, find ways to help and serve others. And no matter what happens, always treat people with respect.
I'll second that, my friend. I think that's huge. I really do, because everybody wants to be respected and feel good about themselves and acknowledged.
Right.
And then it's a whole different world out there.
Right.
And you're so great because you start with the kids, and it can help them be more resilient, happier, healthier adults. And I love that about you. And I thank everybody for coming to the Shape Up Summit to listen to Coach Jim. And he will be answering questions, and it will be the week of the 8th. Well, he'll be one of our, on the 17th, you're joining us for our panel. So please come in. There'll be 4 of us for the panel. We're very excited about that. And then we'll have another day that you can answer questions and answers, which will be on the website. So any last minute tips or words? God bless.
Well, I think the other thing is just remember, because, I've been hearing lately, about COVID, called the COVID-20, where people have actually gained a lot of weight. And I really want you to be, one of the other questions I mentioned, the other talk I do on the 10 questions is, do you have a personal wellness plan? And I want to encourage you, I told you being a role model is important. And I've actually gone the other way. I'm actually in better shape than I was before COVID, and I've always kept myself in really good shape. So just remember that no matter what, that take care of yourself, so that you have energy and feel good about yourself. Because when you do that, I think then you'll really go out and seek to help and respect other people. So I guess one little tip I'll give, because I'm certainly not as busy as at one time as I was in my life. I still am fairly busy. But I always used to tell people, because, one time in my life, I was teaching, coaching, having a family, and also speaking on the side. So I would do crazy things. I'd fly out to California, speak at an event, fly back the next day, and then be teaching the next day. So I did some crazy things. But you know what? I always really focused that I was going to take care of myself. And one bit of advice I'll share with everybody is that make sure you set appointments for yourself that are like any other appointment to take care of yourself, whether it's exercise, meditate, those types of things, I think are just so essential. And we, in a busy world, or, when you get frustrated or you're sad or whatever, you forget to take care of yourself. And that to me is so important.
Do you meditate every day? Do you do things like that?
I do. I do. I call it my 5 non-negotiables.
Okay, let's hear it now. You have to keep going.
So the 5 non-negotiables that I have every single day is that I have these goal cards. So when I get up in the morning, I read the goal cards. I always start by saying these 2 statements: I am responsible and I like myself. And then I go through my goals. I do that in the morning and evening. So that's 1. Number 2 is that I pray every day. Now, I'm a person of faith, and I'm not saying right or wrong, but I do a prayer every single day. Number 3 is I meditate. I have I have my own little system. I do it approximately, I'm kind of anal at times. So I about 17 minutes. I do it right now. I just started at 3, and then I've got to the point now. Number 4 is that I write my my goals, kind of my 15 statements. I call that in a goals journal. I do that every single day. It takes me about 8 or 9 minutes. And then the last one is I always do exercise. So that can be as short as 30 minutes and sometimes as long as 2 hours. So But again, those are all planned out in my thing. The only thing that I do some things in the morning, but like those 5 non-negotiables, are not necessarily all done in the morning, but I try to get them done usually in the first part of the day.
That's great tips. I believe in all those. We pick a word, my friends and I who hike, which a lot of people do out there, from John Gordon. And my word this year is miracles. And I took a booklet, and every day I write that miracle so that I can realize. And my other favorite word is serendipity. And someone told me that miracles is serendipity on a mission. And
Oh,
so I thought
nice.
that
I
was
like
really
that.
great. And so every night, same as
Yeah.
you, I write that down just to be so grateful
Yeah.
and blessed, how lucky we are. No matter if it was not the best day, there's always something that stood out that said, thank you. And meditating has rocked my world because
Yeah.
it just brings me back. I'm also, as you know, like you, a big exercise person. So that's really
Right.
important. And healthy eating, that's what you put in your body is really important. And
Yeah. No
we have
day.
to take care of ourselves. We are number one to be able to take care of other people.
Right.
Well,
And I mentioned one thing that I started doing. I didn't do it early in my life. I wish I did. But I'm a big capture of ideas. So I have an idea journal. And if I listen to a podcast or read something and I say, oh, that's a great idea, I write it down, I date it. And that's been really helpful for me. So in
it's
fact, I
funny
do
about
a,
ideas that you say that too, because I see a lot of people share ideas, but I'm the person that takes those ideas and do it.
yeah,
It's not just
yeah,
written in a journal. That idea manifests, and then you make it happen, like your book and now your second book. And, and I have no doubt that you'll be coaching, on the spectrum and being able to help there, just because that's one of your visions and you take that
right.
vision to the max.
Yeah. So
So
thanks. Yeah, I actually do on my social media. I do a success thought every morning, and then I do a leadership thought in the afternoon. So
now, where can people follow you on that?
so I'm actually on I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter. And I just started, although I haven't quite figured it out, but I do post some on it, is Instagram. I'm starting to do a little bit with that. But the main three I've spent it for the last few years have been LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. And they're all at Coach Jim Johnson, and you can hook on my website again, coachjimjohnson.com. So.
Perfect. And they can email you too there. They can hook up and connect with you on your website.
Yes, I got. I actually give you my personal email,
Yeah, in
which
case
is
people
not
have
on there.
questions.
But my personal email is jjhoops, jjhoops at Rochester, rochester.rr.com. So jjhoops at rochester.rr.com. There's also contact, there's a number on my website that would come to me. And there's also another email that would come to me as well.
So if people would love to have you speak or talk with you a personal problem or coach them, those are ways they can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. So I'm here to serve.
You are here to serve. You're amazing. Well, I am so blessed you're here with us today. And thank you for your words of wisdom and your heart of gold. And we'll see you on the 17th on our panel. So tune in again. And thanks for you.
My pleasure, Jill. It was great to talk to you. And as I said, I'm here to serve. So
Lots of hugs to you and your family.
thank you. You too.
Thank you.